All rise, and Ms. Becker, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I sure would.
Okay, and at this time, if there are any public comments?
We have one, Dr. Phil Watts.
Good afternoon. I just have and ask that the board ask the staff to review and consider. It's things that we have that have been discussed here in the past, looking to further those conversations and bring them into the context of what's happening today. So specifically around some of the roles of an energy advisor and some of the roles of development that are available to the board. Yeah, if that pleases the board.
If you have anything to present to the board, if you could please just give it to the secretary.
Will
of the
do,
board.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Mhm.
Okay, and moving on to, are there any board comments or announcements? Okay, I have none either. Any presentations? Not today. So on to new business. Item 1 on the agenda is a public hearing for a Clean Energy Alliance Community Choice Aggregation Implementation Plan and resolution approving Clean Energy Alliance Implementation Plan and Statement of Intent. And I will kick it over to staff.
Thank you and good evening, board. My name is Dan King. I'm with the City of Solana Beach, and I'll be introducing item number 1, which is a board consideration of approving the Community Choice Aggregation Implementation Plan. Oh, okay. Okay, she's doing it. All right. So at the last CEA board meeting, the draft implementation plan was presented to the board for feedback, and feedback was given, and that feedback was included into the final implementation plan for your guys' consideration today. The item before you today is to consider approval of the implementation plan and direct staff to submit it to the CPUC before the end of this month, December 31st, 2019. And I'll now introduce Barbara Boswell, who prepared the plan, to give a brief presentation, and she'll be available for questions or comments afterwards. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Schumacher, Vice Chair Haviland, and Board Member Becker. It's my pleasure to bring back the implementation plan for your consideration and adoption. Just as a brief overview or background, the implementation plan is a requirement for an agency to form its community choice aggregation program. CCA was authorized by Assembly Bill 117, and Public Utilities Code Sections 366.2 sets out the requirement for the implementation plan and what should be included in the plan. And it also established community choice aggregation as an opt-out program, so all eligible customers within your territory are automatically included unless they take a proactive action to opt out. I have to see if I know how to, which of these, there we go. So as Dan King mentioned, the implementation plan was presented to the board on November the 19th at your last board meeting. And at that meeting, there were 2 specific changes requested to be made to the implementation plan as it had been proposed. And both of those changes have now been made in the plan, and the plan now reflects those changes. One was related to the Section 2.2 process of aggregation, and it was to clarify the noticing requirements for the Solana Energy Alliance customers, since they are currently CCA customers and not departing from San Diego Gas and Electric Service. The second change was related to Section 6.2, and the request was to add joint powers authorities as alternative partnerships for energy resources. So both of those changes have been made at the request of the board. And the Public Utilities Code requires that the implementation plan be considered and adopted at a public hearing, which we are holding now, and that it should include particular sections, including organizational structure, operations and funding, rate setting, methods for entering and terminating agreements, rights and responsibilities of program participants, termination of the program, and description of third parties supplying electricity in the plan as proposed. That's before you, includes all of those requirements. It also sets out that it is required to have a statement of intent that provides or addresses universal access, reliability, equitable treatment of customers, and that the CCA will meet the requirements established by state law or California Public Utilities Commission, and those are also included in the plan as proposed before you at this point. Assumptions that were included in developing the implementation plan include the cities of Carlsbad, Del Mar, and Solana Beach, and that the Solana Energy Alliance customers will transition to Clean Energy Alliance during the month of May 2021. For purposes of the implementation plan is the targeted launch month, but again, if circumstances change, that month can be adjusted, and we still will be working with San Diego Gas and Electric to refine that date. Customers will be enrolled in a single phase throughout the month of launch, the month of May. They'll enroll as they complete their billing period or billing cycle. And customers have different billing cycles in each month. And that, to be conservative, we did assume an opt-out rate of 10%. However, recent CCAs we're seeing that the opt-out rates are actually lower than that, and but to be conservative, we took the approach of a 10% for purposes of the financial pro forma. In terms of energy supply assumptions, consistent with the JPA document, we assume a default 50% renewable energy product for customers, and will offer a voluntary 100% renewable opt-up option for customers who choose to opt up, and that the CCA will meet state requirements related to renewable portfolio standards and greenhouse gas emissions. There's a target 2% discount on the generation rates as compared to current SDG&E generation rates, or rates that would be in effect at the time that the CCA launches. And the assumptions are consistent with Clean Energy Alliance's Joint Powers Agreement and supports the Climate Action Plan goals of the member agencies of Carlsbad, Del Mar, and Solana Beach. Next steps, so we, assuming that the board does adopt the resolution and approve the implementation plan, we would file it with the California Public Utilities Commission by December 31st. And the CPUC has 90 days to review and certify or come back with questions related to the implementation plan. Within that same 90 days, then, there are a number of other steps to be completed. Those include preparing and filing a draft customer notice, preparing and filing a renewable portfolio standards procurement plan, executing a service agreement with San Diego Gas and Electric to provide services to the CCA, including billing, and also submitting a bond, $147,000 to the PUC, which is also known as a financial security requirement that should Clean Energy Alliance terminate service without notice. This would be the funding that the IOU or San Diego Gas and Electric would have to help pay for administrative costs of transitioning customers back. So the recommendation before you is to conduct the public hearing, adopt the resolution approving the Community Choice Aggregation Implementation Plan and Statement of Intent, and direct staff to file the plan with the CPUC before the due date of December 31st, 2019. And that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
I'm recalling now, last meeting, I know you were here too, and thank you for the presentation. It's very clear, that SDG&E was here saying something about how they were going to be going through a transition phase with their billing, and it sounded to me like they were sort of putting us on notice that they did not want us starting in May. Did you get that impression, or have you talked to them?
Yeah, I am aware that they are planning to implement a new billing system. It's a major, I guess, it's not just an upgrade, it's a brand-new system that they're implementing, and that there are concerns with regards to timing and ensuring that they have a system that's stable and that the implementation doesn't take place at a period of time where they're freezing the system. And so those discussions will take place in the near future. We'll reach out and start the discussions in terms of what the options are, what they're proposing in terms of timing, and look at that in terms of what makes sense for Clean Energy Alliance and what the board would like to see happen.
It would be good to let them know, here we are, a year and a half, that clearly we are starting on that date, so don't go dark on that date or something like that, right? Don't you agree that we should make sure that we're giving them enough notice that, because I recall something that went on when we were starting SEA, the Solana Beach Energy Alliance, that something was similar to this. And so I just want to make sure that we work that out sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
I hate to get
you are recalling correctly. So at the time that Solana Energy Alliance was kicking off, San Diego Gas and Electric did not feel they were prepared to handle the billing of a CCA, but we had Calpine Energy Solutions as a data manager and helped SDG&E through the process and assisted with some manual processes in order for the CCA to move forward and launch quicker than what SDG&E had anticipated. The upgrade of the billing system, I think, is a fairly significant undertaking, and billing of the CCA is, I think, one of the most important aspects. It's what the customer sees. Really, the only thing they see is the bill, and we'll see Clean Energy Alliance, and so it'll be important that that be correct and smooth. And so we'll want to make sure that in our discussions with them, we listen to the concerns and take into consideration what they're saying that the risks are in making the determination on what months we want to look at.
Okay, just that we're on it.
Yeah.
Board Member Holland? Okay. Okay, so is there any public comment? Thank you very much. Do we have any audience members?
Just want to declare the public hearing now is going to be opened,
Declare
just for
the
the
public-
record.
Declare the public hearing open.
We have one, Josh Brock.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Schumacher and board members. My name is Josh Brock. I'm the Director of Community Choice Programs for Calpine Energy Solutions. And I just wanted to take a moment to provide some outside review, I guess, of your current implementation plan. As you may know, Calpine Energy Solutions is the largest back office provider for CCAs in California. We currently support 15 of the 19 operational CCAs, and we are concurrently launching 6 more that'll start service in 2020. We've been in this business, in the CCA business, since 2010 with the launch of Marine Clean Energy. And through that time, we've been involved with and reviewed a lot of implementation plans and phase launches that take place. And so we thought, as a local entity based here in San Diego, we would take a look at what's happening locally and provide some context and see if there's any feedback that we could provide that would be helpful. And so I just wanted to say, one, we've reviewed the plan from the CCA perspective. We believe it's well crafted, it's well thought through, it hits all the marks from a regulatory perspective, and it is a regulatory compliance plan. And so we wanted to just acknowledge and provide some outside context that we think it is well crafted, and want to congratulate staff for putting together a great plan. We also took a look, Calpine Energy Solutions also works in the direct access and open energy markets. We are one of the top 5 largest energy service providers nationwide and have a deep bench of experience in wholesale and retail markets. And we went through the additional data beyond what would be originally contemplated as just the CCA portions. And the feedback I received from the teams that review that is that this is also well thought through, and they believe it is of the quality that you would expect from an energy service provider, in your case, a load serving entity, to provide. So with that, I wanted to just acknowledge that it's very well crafted and well done, and I wanted to provide our recommendation that the board does approve the plan as adopted and follow through with staff's recommendation. And if I may, this was not in my initial comments, I did want to note through Board Director Becker, so Calpine is currently supporting Solana Beach Azure CCA, and we've been actively working with SDGenie on their data platform, replatforming towards their new billing system, and would be happy to provide some additional context or questions or answers that the board may have about how that's going. We've provided similar support to other CCAs throughout California where their IOU is going through a similar process. So we do have a deep level of technical expertise in that space that we believe could be helpful to the extent that the board has questions. And I know staff also has our information. We're happy to provide that support at any level that's appropriate. Thank you very much and appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
No other speaker cards.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and would entertain a motion to approve the staff recommendations, of which there are three, or two. Okay,
I move approval of the staff recommendations, including the adoption of the resolution approving CEA Community Choice Aggregation Implementation Plan and Statement of Intent.
I'll second that.
And also, part of that motion would be to direct staff to file the implementation plan and statement of intent with the California CPUC no later than December 31, 2019.
Thank you.
okay, go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and move on to item 2, which is the selection of an interim chief executive officer for fiscal year 2019-2020. I'll kick it over to staff.
Okay, good afternoon, Board Chair Schumacher and board members. This item is the selection of the interim Chief Executive Officer for the fiscal year 2019-2020. I'm Jason Haber. I'm with the City of Carlsbad. Section 5.5 of Clean Energy Alliance's Joint Powers Agreement calls for the board to appoint a Chief Executive Officer to handle the day-to-day operations and management of the authority and the CCA program. The agreement requires that that appointment not be an elected member of the board or otherwise affiliated or representing any of the parties or member agencies to the authority. The CEO would be authorized to exercise all powers of the authority and accept those powers specifically reserved to the board. And finally, the CEO would be authorized to enter into and execute power purchase agreements and other contracts on behalf of the agency in accordance with the criteria and policies established by the board. On November 5th, the board directed staff to develop and release a request for qualifications to solicit proposals from qualified firms to provide these services and to return to you at today's meeting for selection of that position for the rest of the fiscal year. We posted the RFQ on all of our member agency websites as well as the CalCCA job board. That date was November 21st. And proposals were due on December 9th. We did, throughout that process, have one set of questions that were asked, and we issued a supplemental response to those questions on December 3rd. The scope of work called for in the RFQ is as follows. It's to develop and plan and implement all of the work necessary to achieve a 2021 launch of the CCA program, to collaborate and communicate with key stakeholders, provide policy and regulatory advocacy on behalf of the Clean Energy Alliance, to develop and implement the Clean Energy Alliance budget, develop board agendas, write staff reports, and make presentations to the board, and then, of course, other duties as assigned by the board of directors. We received 3 proposals in response to the RFQ. The respondents were Pilot Power Group, EES Consulting, and Bayshore Consulting Group. The evaluation criteria were spelled out in the RFQ. Those included an analysis of best value, the relevant experience and qualifications of the firm, proposed services and methodology or approach, schedule, and then the overall response to the RFQ. We interviewed all 3 respondents on December 11th by phone. Those interviews included staff members from all 3 of the member agencies. And throughout that process of evaluation and interview and analysis of the proposals leads us to our staff recommendation, which is to to direct the general counsel to negotiate an agreement with Bayshore Consulting Group for professional services to fulfill the duties of interim CEO for the Clean Energy Alliance for the remainder of this fiscal year, and to authorize the CEA board chair to execute the agreement for a not to exceed amount of $50,000, which is the amount that was presented for these services in your preliminary budget for the fiscal year. So the basis for staff's recommendation, Bayshore's got a demonstrated ability to provide high-quality service to the duties of interim CEO at the best value. They have extensive experience and expertise supporting the launch and implementation of 5 CCAs in Southern California, as well as establishing a new JPA. Bayshore has a track record of providing excellent professional services, working with the City of Solana Beach and the Solana Energy Alliance in launching their program. Bayshore has a background and experience at the municipal government executive level, primarily in finance, which is very valuable to this operation. And finally, Bayshore offered the lowest hourly rate and submitted a project budget that aligns with the proposed budget for this scope of service as well. We did a brief analysis of the 3 proposals that we've presented here. Somewhat difficult to track in that the approach and pricing structure that was presented by each of the responding proposers was laid up somewhat differently. But you see across the top, Pilot Power Group, EES Consulting, and Bayshore Consulting. First, starting with estimated monthly staff costs, Pilot Power Group proposed a fixed monthly cost of $33,000. That ranges among staff at between $90 and $250 per hour, depending on the level of staff support you're getting. EES proposed for a staff line item an estimated $15,000 per month, billed at $190 an hour, and Bayshore presented at $6,200 a month at an estimated hourly or at a fixed hourly of $150 per hour. And so some of the difference that you'll see is the approach to the deliverables. Bayshore's proposal really was limited to the service of providing an interim CEO function. And if you look down to the bottom line in terms of that approach, this is really a pre-launch, part-time administrative role with contracted deliverables through RFPs that would be produced and provided by Bayshore. In EES's proposal, in addition to the monthly staff cost, they estimated about $70,000 over the next 6 months in deliverables that they would be producing in-house. So that's a combination of final deliverables and specific costs for RFPs that would be going out for contracted services. So in their proposal, you see a combination of in-house and contracted deliverables included in their price proposal. And in the Pilot Power Group proposal, they laid up a concept with about 5 staff members assigned to this endeavor at some combination between 25% and 50% of their time. So, more than 1.5 FTE equivalent, and really targeted their scope of work more to an operational administration as opposed to a pre-launch kind of phase that matched better with where we stand. And so you saw a lot of elements in their approach that spoke to organizational development, developing procedures and policies, and really laying up a strategic framework for implementing programs and operations of a CCA as opposed to what we're anticipating the needs of Clean Energy Alliance to be over the next 6 months in more of a pre-launch phase. So with that, again, we are recommending the 2 items here and would be happy to take any questions that you have at this time. We also, I know, have Barb Boswell from Bayshore Consulting Group here with us today, and I'm not sure if any of the other applicants are with us today, but if you are, raise your hand.
Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over, see if we have any questions from the board members.
Just one clarification, the estimated start date for the consultant?
Estimated start date would be as soon as we can execute a contract. So first of the year would be I think a reasonable timeline to get through that. Yeah,
So they'll likely be here by the time of our next board meeting? Okay,
that would
if
be
all
the hope.
goes well.
Yes, if all goes
Okay.
well.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Becker, would you mind sharing with us the experience you've had with Bayshore at the Solana Beach?
I have not worked directly with them. We have had a fabulous staff do most of the contact and work, but I have always heard fabulous things. And it was a complicated launch. We were the first ones in San Diego to launch our CCA. And so there was a lot of things to work out. And I know Barb has been there from day one and knows exactly what we were going through, helped us through that process, and has set up different CCA ways, as far as JPAs or standalones or all that stuff. So she clearly has all of the qualifications that we're looking for. She's always been accessible. And what I would hope is that we could, before my city council meetings, I meet with my city manager one-on-one. And I think that Barb would probably be amenable to that too, that each of us could have questions and we could come to you before the meetings for that too. So I know of her as far as being accessible, and we had no glitches, and she's been fabulous, so no complaints.
Thank you very much.
I had one additional question. So will Bayshore continue to be consulting for Solana Clean Energy during the transition?
Yes.
Okay. And from a legal perspective, do you see any concern on any conflicts that might arise between the two? Is that something that can be worked out in the negotiation on the contract?
I think so. We'll ask some questions about that. I don't think that should be a hurdle here, but we will take a look at that.
Thank you very much. Just kind of dipping in here, so the timeline would be 6 months for the interim, and then by the end of the 6 months, we'd be looking at a more permanent position for CEO. Is that correct?
That's correct. Chair Schumacher, the idea would be that we would enter into this agreement to last through the fiscal year, and within that timeline, the board would have the opportunity to evaluate the needs for staffing. You could make a decision that you wanted to bring staffing and the CEO function in-house to have a full-time employed employee. You could make a decision to extend the contract with the interim CEO, or direct to do a new RFP for permanent CEO position, or longer term anyhow, for the coming fiscal year.
Can you just briefly, thank you very much, can you just briefly give I know we have timelines in here, but I want to just get a sense of, over the next 6 months, what is our work plan really looking like?
I do not. I guess I would invite you possibly to invite Barb Boswell up to talk about her view of that. That might be a really good opportunity to see
Thank you.
her thoughts on that.
Ms. Boswell?
Thank you, and hello again. So for the next 6 months, assuming a May 2021 launch, your focus would really be on building your core team, so issuing RFPs for technical consultants, data management and call center, the energy suppliers, and selecting teams that are the best fit for Clean Energy Alliance and what you're trying to accomplish. Meeting the regulatory requirements, so we have resource adequacy compliance filings that would be due in April, followed by needing to contract for resource adequacy. So those activities would be taking place during that 6 months. In addition, you'd be looking at developing your brand, starting to think about marketing and community outreach, developing the website for Clean Energy Alliance and to start that outreach efforts with the community. And just really meeting the regulatory requirements and getting a good basis for policies and procedures to ensure that the core of the new port, the new government agency, has proper internal controls and gets off to a strong footing.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking of some of the work that we may want to do around contemplating different types of programming, and I'm not really sure where that would fit in, the programming for our customers, as well as some strategic planning. that may be more long-term in nature, but I'm in thinking about putting together a core team or strategically how we pull people together. It's hard for me to think about that without having some roadmap. So would that also be a part of what you would assist with, or is that something that would be after the 6-month period?
Certainly is something that can be assisted with, and I had already contemplated looking at the individual climate action plans, creating a chart or a work plan that pulls out the areas that are where there's alignment or where there are things different, and then thinking about what programs should we be thinking about in starting the CCA that would support meeting the goals of the individual climate action plans collectively and individually. And I think doing some sort of a working group or a work meeting supports that as well.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was contemplating, was
Yeah.
a workshop where we are able to really just have a conversation and brainstorm
Right.
with our collective climate action plans and bring the ideas to the table. So that's something that makes sense heading into any strategic planning. So. Okay.
If I could just add on really quickly in response to your question, in Bayshore's proposal, if you go to their schedule layout, they have quite a detailed layout of what the technical steps that need to occur over the next 6 months are. So it's about 20 items of tasks that will be accomplished over the next 6 months.
Okay. And with that, hopefully comes the creative end of things, where we get to talk about it. So, okay, I think that is, and we also are going to be shaping out the bylaws and all of that too, right? Okay. Okay. Any additional questions, comments? No? Thank you very much, Ms. Boswell. I appreciate it. If there's no further questions or comments, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, thank you very much. Then I would look for a motion or final comments. Or?
Did you have any comments? Oh, okay, go ahead. Okay. I just thought you had comments.
No, I'd like to move approval of the staff recommendation to direct general counsel to negotiate an agreement with the Bayshore Consulting Group, Inc. for professional services to fulfill the duties of interim chief executive officer for the Clean Energy Alliance for fiscal year 1920, and to authorize the CEA board chair to execute the agreement for not to exceed amount of $50,000.
I'm very happy to second that.
All right, go ahead and vote. And that has been unanimously approved. Thank you very much. And I don't know whether or not anybody's checked, but this may be the first, possibly the only all-female CCA JPA. In the state of California. Okay, and with that, now we move into the portion where it's board member requests for future agenda items. So I wanted to kick it over to Ms. Haviland, who's, I think, been patiently waiting for the past couple meetings to kick us off here.
Well, I've been patiently waiting for us to have our CEO on board, so I guess we have a little bit longer to wait. But I'm getting a lot of feedback from the community who would really like for us to start talking about our citizen committees and when they'll be able to start engaging with the board. And also, I love your idea of the workshop, because we can't talk to each other outside of these meetings, so that's a great way for us to be able to interact as a board as well, and with the public to make some of these critical decisions we have coming up. And I'm also curious, and so I'd like to talk about committees more specifically in January, if that seems appropriate. We can all come with our ideas for that. And then I also want to talk about, as part of what we're going to be working on in the next year, is how we're going to attract new members and what our strategy is for that. Because I think that's something that has to start sooner rather than later. And so I think January would be a good time to start that conversation.
Ms. Becker?
Yes, I am in complete agreement with the second one. The first one, as far as citizen committees, I'm thinking that January is a little bit early for that. I think that right now we're working on getting these structures, and for the first 6 months, it sounds like we have a lot of regulatory stuff to do. And I'm just afraid if we go outside getting more input from other people that don't really understand where we are in this process, their input is going to be valuable, I think, a year from now. Later when we're talking about programs and other things like that. But I'm not against starting that. I'm just afraid to start getting too many other people putting in opinions that just aren't things that we can deal with right now. But that said, the other thing that I think is really important that we need to get working on is getting our request for proposals for the technical consultant, because I heard you mention April is the day that we have something due. And so I think that's probably first step that we need to get working on that. So I would be hopeful for that. Thank you.
I wonder if during the process where we're able to form committees, I assume that we would be going through an application process. So that might actually, we might be able to extend the timeline for that so that it's not bringing folks on necessarily in February, but it might actually be a process that we can start in January by forming the committee and then putting out an application process to initiate further down the road. So that might be one way to do that, where it's not right away and getting more people involved. Because I too, I really want to see the Citizens Advisory Committee. That's something that I've heard loud and clear from my side of things. But the timing, it'd be good to get this on the agenda to talk about the timing. So that might be actually a good way to just initiate that. Strategy around new members is a really great idea. Maybe an ad hoc committee of one. So how that works with a 3-member board? It does. It does. But yeah, getting some strategy around that. But I think this is exactly where the workshop would be helpful, where if we have in January a dedicated meeting, which is a workshop to really talk about, walk the community through a good set of timelines and where we want to add in each of these items and be able to really see the roadmap, even if it's not fully fleshed out. But there's the technical, what we have to do for the regulations to hit the marks, and then there's all of the things that we want to do for our community and the conversations around programs, the committees. And so I wonder if a workshop around these items specifically with the committees and the strategy around new members would be helpful.
I just want clarification. You're asking for a citizen committee for ideas for what? For programs? Or what is it exactly that you feel that we need that right now, the input? I'm just curious.
I think the reason why I want to get this started in January, and not the committee started in January, but because we can't talk between meetings, there are some things that may take us a couple meetings to get implemented. And so coming to January with our ideas of what committees we think we need to have, what sort of timing we're looking at for implementation, and what would the charter of those committees be, so that we are in agreement on that. And that may take more than one meeting to get that figured out. We may have questions that we can't answer in January that will come back in February and continue the process. But I want to be able to tell my community, we hear you, we realize this is important, and you want to be engaged in this process. And we are working towards a plan to have X committee started by Y date, so that we're not, so that we're giving them tangible things to look forward to. But not to overwhelm staff on their critical mission of getting all the regulatory and all the
Right, for the first 6 months.
operations
Yeah.
things done in order for us to have a successful launch.
Okay. That's,
Is that
yeah,
satisfactory?
I just wanted to find out. I don't want, yeah, I think that would be good to start talking about that.
Okay.
That would be better than actually forming the committee in January and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think it's too early.
I think we're all in agreement on that one. Okay, so in order to place items on a future agenda, I would assume we would need a motion and votes. So let me just double check with our council here.
That'd be correct.
Yes, okay. So Ms. Haviland, would you like to?
So I would move that at our January meeting, we have a workshop to discuss the process of committee formation, as well as a discussion on strategy around attracting new members to our CEA.
Okay. And I would second, and for the purpose of just clarification, would this be in addition to our regular meeting? Or would it be to replace regular meeting, or would it also?
So I was assuming it could be part of our regular meeting, but I'm open to.
Okay, let me just check over with staff. Does that sound good? We could have a portion that's just for us discussing these items, and then more of just the more official technical business. Does that sound like it would work for staff?
I think that's fine based on I think at this point we know we want to bring service agreements forward in January, but other than that, I'm not sure if we have other tentative items at this point.
I think a discussion on the banking RFP should be at the next agenda as well, but.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and add that to that regular meeting. Okay. Oh, I seconded.
Oh,
yeah.
you seconded. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Excellent, passes unanimously. And Ms. Becker, did you want to add anything further to the agenda with the tech consultant?
I think that we're on that.
You're good?
And the banking. Those are the two items that I think are really crucial right now.
Okay. Excellent. One further item, I know that Ms. Boswell was speaking earlier about the marketing and the branding. Did the board want to have a conversation about logos at some point? Would we want to add that to a future agenda within maybe January, February?
Yeah, do we know when we're going to be able to launch our website? It would probably be a good idea to have the logo with the website, or does that matter?
Why don't we bring forward an item to discuss CEA branding and communications in
Great.
general? At this point, we do have some resources in place through the city of Carlsbad in our communications department, and hopefully you've all had a chance to go take a look at the new Clean Energy Alliance website.
The Clean Energy Alliance.
TheCleanEnergyAlliance.org is up and running. I might even be able to bring it up here on the screen if you want to take a quick look.
Nice. Yeah.
So we have consolidated all of the relevant JPA documents, links to all of our board meeting agendas, links to the videos from all of your board meetings thus far, and we'll continue to place things there as kind of a placeholder site for the time being until we get into a finalized condition with that. But it would be really important to have board input and advice on that prior to that.
Okay, so I'd like to move that we place on a future agenda the CEA branding and communications agenda item.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously. And was our secretary about to pull up the website? Or Mr. Haber?
Let's see how it goes.
There it is.
There it is. So we have Nikki Matosian and Wanda Weiss in the audience today. Nikki is with the City of Carlsbad Communications Department, and Ms. Weiss is on contract with the city through NV5. And so we do have help in that area to help us with organizing this information. This is the homepage. You have access to background, community choice energy, some basics, our implementation plan as it was presented at your last meeting, the various studies and reports that have led to the formation, kind of going back chronologically. We have a page for our board of directors. We have a link for all of the associated documents and links to the meeting videos and agenda packets for all of our meetings up until this point, as well as going forward on the schedule into 2020. News items that have come out about Clean Energy Alliance formation, and then a pretty comprehensive FAQ section on all things related to CEA and CCE. So,
What happens if someone pushes that subscribe button?
oh gosh, I don't know, is there a subscribe button? Let's find out. Looks like you can subscribe for receiving emails, is that right? Where do we have Nick? Yes.
Currently, we're starting to build out a new list, so for anyone specifically for our community alliance, they'll all be together and easily be migrated to another system.
So kudos to them for putting this together, and I think puts us at a great start, and we'll just make it better from here. So.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Great.
Anything further to place on future agendas?
It's pretty full.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to note that our next meeting is going to be in Del Mar. So Ms. Haviland will be hosting us in Del Mar, and that'll be June 16th, 2 p.m. at 1050 Camino Del Mar. And with that, we adjourn.
Excellent. Very good.
Get ready.